United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the zealous symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Next is roll call.
Mr. Richard Primrose.
Here.
Ms. Teresa Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Tom Sidwell.
Here.
And Mr. Bill Fox.
Here.
And Mr. Jimmy Sandoval is not here.
Thank you.
There he
There
is.
he is.
Okay, there he is.
Hey,
Hello, Jimmy.
Jimmy, how are you doing?
all right so far. Knock on wood.
You're absent.
Yeah.
All right. Next is approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda for April?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
That one's already been approved.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevenson,
Here.
do you approve the agenda?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and Mr. Fox,
Yes.
and Mr. Primrose.
Yes.
And the motion carried.
I thought we were starting over.
Yeah, I've got the right agenda. Now the minutes. First is public comment. We're doing public comment then. So next is approval of the minutes for the April 30th. Has everybody had a chance to review those and any additions or deletions? Now I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I so moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
and Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Chairman's report. The only thing I wanted to say is I want to thank everybody that worked so hard on the graduation. I think it went really good. And it's great to see the number of students that we have getting certificates and diplomas and the hard work that the students, faculty, and staff do. And appreciate all the job do. I know it's a lots of work and appreciate it. And it was very well attended and great event. Next, we'll go to the president's report. Dr. Moss.
And I'd kind of tag on that. I know Josh and Joel put a lot of work in that, and the committee, and they may address some of that, but kind of shifted that to a committee, and they all were pitched in and did a lot of work on it. And I that's the first time I'd been in that theater, and it's a pretty nice venue for that. It just seemed to fit really, really well. And I'm not going to talk a lot because I'm going to lose my voice if I do. You all have my report. Graduation, Cinco de Mayo. We had several events before graduation that seemed to go really well. Want to thank Tucumcari School for letting us use their auditorium. Was able to sit down with Mr. Morano, the incoming superintendent. Had a good visit. I think he's maybe this week meeting with Joel, and I also gave him Josh's contact, Mr. McVeigh's contact information, and so we're hoping to build some more bridges there. let's see. I did mention, the EAB contract. We were able to put that off for a year, and we met with them earlier this year, and just expressed where we were at, and we just didn't have the money or the people capacity to put something else in when we're already doing a lot of training on Genzabar and stuff. And so they did send us a termination agreement, and so we should not owe anything else on those parts. HERF, some of the things I think that are on there tonight, we filed an extension for HERF to give us some more time. That we have approximately $394,000. At one point, we were told that was on the student side, and then they came back and said, no, it is on your institution side, which we thought it should be. And so that cut down the window that we have time to spend that. So we went through, I think Ms. Arias and I both sat through a webinar on how to file an extension. We met, kind of went over what we thought we could do before June 30th and what we could do after, and filed that extension. I need to follow up and see when we're going to know. But then there are a couple things we think we can get in and purchased and paid for before June 30th, and so we're trying to get that pushed through. What we filed our extension for is some HVAC work, transition to Canvas for our learning management system, upgrading a couple 2 or 3 classrooms for distance learning, and then also some technology upgrades, laptops for students and staff and faculty. I'm attending a meeting tomorrow. It's the NMS CPA. It's basically kind of a state organization for CPAs and CFOs, but it's a 3-day event, but I'm only going tomorrow because some of it's particular to New Mexico and will have some bearing on us. The state auditor will be there. Is it Sean Beck or Shane Beck? Anyway, the gentleman overseeing our special audit will be there, and there's some topics that things like Office of State Auditor, recent issues and findings, recent trends, fraud, waste, and those things. And so I want to hear, one, if we're even mentioned in that stuff, but also I think it'd be helpful to know kind of what they're looking. They're also going to have a legislative update. I would mention that there was a settlement reached with Mr. Rozek, and we did send the settlement, I think. Ron, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. So we had some requests for that. We're not, releasing any other statements other than we're able to get to a settlement. Set in a webinar today. So in addition to the study that's still out there for Mesalands, higher ed department and the legislature set aside some money to do a sustainability study. And what I got from that is they're going to be looking at the funding formula, how each college in the state is funded. Are there any discrepancies? Are there any where one's getting funded more than they should be, or one's not getting enough? No one said this, but I'm sure it'll have some bearing on us. What are we receiving state aid versus what we're getting tuition and fees like that? And then they're going to try to have that report done by like October, November, December, in time for at least the legislature, if not maybe a interim committee meeting before that. Didn't sound like maybe necessarily anything would be done this year due to that study, but it's just something to watch, because they're going to be looking at every college and university in the state, and they're going to be, do you have the right number of personnel? Are you getting the same amount of funding? How is that funding based? And they're going to make comparisons to other states. So anyway, that's going to be going on. Insurance, we did get an email last week that said that NMCA had settled on their rates, and it's actually lower than what they were saying. Medical will go up 10%, and our risk insurance will go up 14.99%. So you remember that originally they were saying health insurance would be like 15%, and risk would be 33%. So I think what happened was just my sense, they come out with those numbers and nobody seemed to be aware of it, and it was kind of a shock. And so then maybe they got some pressure to go back down on them. But I also want to introduce a new employee, Mr. Nathan Krakula. Mr. Krakula is our new SBDC director, and it's exciting to get someone to actually fill that position. We haven't had anyone here since Miss Vicki Watson, other than myself for a month or two, and I don't really count that. So he's already been to Albuquerque or Santa Fe, Albuquerque, for some meetings with other state directors. In a sense, that's a job. It's not really necessarily a college job, but we've already had some conversations, and we want to make sure that we're working with them and definitely help the community. So we're glad to have him with us. That's all I got, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Moss? Not, we'll move on to the financial report.
If you got any questions,
I'm kind of like you. I look at the cash, and cash keeps flowing.
So I would add, and I missed it completely this morning, but Miss Arias and Miss Hall both met with Scott Eccles this morning. And the purpose was, with the cash flow report, Tammy didn't get a lot of training, and basically she kind of just took what Blanca was sending and filled in numbers. And so they went through, and Miss Arias could probably tell us more about this, but the purpose of that meeting was for Scott to go through that form, see if there was anything, if there's any way we could make it simpler or just what the information was needed and what that was for. Do you have anything to add to that, Ms. Arias?
I wish they would have had a template, but I guess they don't. So he's kind of letting us look at it and come up with something to make it simpler and see if it'll work for them. But he feels positive that we're moving in the right direction also, so.
Good.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose.
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Next is our quarterly financial report for the third quarter.
We have to submit this to HED every 3 months. Nothing really changed on this. We've billed HED for some additional funds, and so we still have to answer yes to number one. But everything else, we don't have any. I can't remember the questions now. Outstanding debt. We're paying our bills and stuff like that. So
The only question I had, this is our third quarter report.
Mhm.
And on the second page where we sign, it's got second quarter and fourth quarter check.
somebody is supposed to check me on that before we. It all should be third quarter.
So it should be the third
Yeah.
quarter, so the signature
Okay.
where we sign it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
only the fourth quarter should be
No, it should just be, it should be the third.
Third
Yeah.
quarter.
Okay, I see.
I probably pulled that from an old, well, I don't know what I did, but yeah, it's all third quarter.
So, I'll entertain a motion to approve the quarterly report with that one change, that it is the third quarter that we're certifying.
I'll make that motion. I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes,
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
All right. So next is the, purchase requisition for Gensabar.
So this is to use Genzavar for this coming year, 24-25. Not really a lot of choice in this since HED is paying for us to do the re-implementation. But this will be for the next school year.
So this is what we pay for a year's subscription,
Yes.
but and then we pay a maintenance, a monthly maintenance fee also.
It's an
Uh,
annual, it's an annual maintenance.
Annual
This
maintenance
is the
fee
annual.
also.
this is the annual, yeah. I don't think we
don't
pay
pay
something every
monthly,
month.
no.
Okay,
No.
so this is just,
Yeah.
okay.
Now the bills you have, like the ones we have been paying have been for the training. That's kind of been split up.
Right. All right. Any questions for this requisition for Gensabar for their annual contract? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the Genzabar contract.
second,
Got a motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
yes,
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and Mr. Box,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Thank you. We also have a purchase requisition for CDW for Wi-Fi access upgrade. This upgrades the whole college? Close?
I don't, okay. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, and this is one of those things we felt like we could get in time to count for HERF before June 30th. And so that's, but it's over the 20,000, and so we need board approval for that.
A lot of equipment, that's good. Any questions for Dr. Moss on this requisition? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this requisition.
so moved,
Second.
Got a motion and a second, roll call please.
Ms. Stevenson,
yes,
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
and Mr. Primrose,
Yes,
and the motion carried.
Can I add a couple things to my report? I forgot.
sure.
Next week, we will have 12 people going to the Genzabar National Conference in Dallas. These are people that are heavily involved in Genzabar, and they're also responsible for training other people. So there will be very few people on campus next week, without classes, without faculty, and then to take those 12 out. We're going to try to use hours that we're not using for training to cover the cost of this trip, but it will be an opportunity for them to, make connections and people that do similar jobs with Genzabar, ask questions of people that are there, and get some face-to-face interaction to kind of build our strength in Genzabar. Then also Thursday, Mr. Martinez and I are going to set in on a GoBond meeting. And we don't have a project on there for this year, but we're going to set in on it to make sure we understand more of the process to get on this next year. And some of you may understand what that is, and I'll just give a brief description. Basically, it's every 2 years. There's an election statewide, and there are lots of different projects on there. Everything from 500 to $1 million, just upgrades to facilities, to bigger projects of 2 and 3 million or whatever. Some of them are bigger than that, that are more specific. And so it's something that we've missed out on this time. I think it was sometime last year when that process was started. But we definitely want to be in that discussion, because my understanding is even if we don't have a specific project, we're still eligible to get $500,000 to $1 million. And so we've also had contact with Stephen Gamble, who I think used to be the president at ENMU. He now kind of does the promotion for that. But I would also say, as you know, if anyone asks or you hear anyone talking about this proposal, we'll still have to vote on it this year. And you know, we want to keep promoting it, because we are going to be ready to be in that next time. So just throw that out there.
So that would be on the election for November,
Yes.
and it will be state funded?
I think it's some kind of like a tax.
Yeah,
It's not an increase, but it's something that's just kind of carried. And, you know, I think most years it passes like 60 to 40%. But going back, I think they have failed a time or two. And that's one reason they put everyone together, so that everyone has a part in that, if that makes sense.
you said they put everyone together.
Like
All the
all the
different
projects, yeah.
Okay.
And so
So
like, if you vote here, you're voting for every project in the state, not
Nursing
just
homes and
ours.
all that.
What's that?
I say nursing home, like you see a lot of that senior citizen type stuff.
I didn't know that. I knew it was like for colleges and stuff like that,
Weren't
but
they separated
Well,
by
that's,
education? I think it does.
well, I think it was, yeah, but that went, you know, you said it was everything thrown together, so that's why I was wondering. So it'll be all the education colleges,
Yeah.
geo bonds then put together. Okay.
Geo bond. I said go bond. That's something else. But yeah, geo bond. Yeah, you're right.
So that means our taxes will go up?
No, it shouldn't
No.
change, because you're already paying for it. It's a continuation. And so it's we always called it a no tax increase when we were passing a bond at our school district or something. But yeah, you shouldn't see a change due to that if it passes.
All right, next is, Mr. Kaiser, Academic Affairs Report.
Hello. Glad to see everyone. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, you have my academic affairs report. It's very short, very condensed. The first thing I want to say is thank you for your show of support at our graduation. That means a lot to our students, it means a lot to our faculty and staff. And to thank all in this room as well for making that happen. And it's nice to see us get back to that ceremony and bring that ceremony to a different level. Having the ceremony in the auditorium versus the gym is a different type of respect and levity in the entire experience. So thank you all for being part of that. This highlights for this month what's happening right now on campus. We have our 24th annual hot iron pour that started on Sunday, runs till Saturday. There are currently 24 students enrolled, and we're looking to probably hit 30. And these are students from all over the country. Some are professional artists, some are educators. Some of the students are our very own art students. So it's a really creative, energetic environment, and I encourage you all, if you have a moment, to actually walk in and check out the artwork that's being created in the space. Tomorrow from 10 till 5, The space is open to the public to create their own art pieces, tile reliefs. They're 4x4 squares. So do take a moment if you have time to come by and just visit with those students. The actual pour itself is on Friday. We've had numerous donations from the community to support the event. And we're looking for the actual tee-off or the burn-in is to be around 10 to 12 in the morning, with a pour starting at noon on Friday. So that's when we hope they're producing iron. And all the work goes, all the thanks goes to the students, our faculty and staff, which we have Bill Rainey and Nate Glaspie over there working to make that event happen. We also have Summer 1, Summer 2, and 3 will kick off soon. The sessions will begin around June 2nd for our summer enrollment, summer course offerings. Other events, down the list here. Again, I gotta thank our support staff, thank Josh's team. We've been working to update all the handbooks, update our faculty handbook, our administrative handbook, so that's all happening in the summer. So if it looks like nothing is happening on campus, don't let it fool you. There's a lot of busy work happening. So that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Who's running the poor deal?
Who's running the poor deal? Our foundry master is Bill Rainey. He is our new fine arts instructor, and he comes to us from Baylor University in Texas. So he's our new time foundry master, and I think he has 26 years of foundry experience and a pretty good amount of ceramic experience. I don't want to insult him with this. So if I say he's a ceramicist, he'll argue with me. But he's a world-known creator, and for me, on my end, the administrative end, getting to watch him work with our students and get our students excited about making. And making comes in many different forms. Sometimes it's the creativity in throwing a vessel. Other times, I was walking through the shop and he was working with students on MIG welding basics to make an actual sculptural form. So that utility is being trained as well. So that was real impressive to see, giving those students the fundamentals of actually using the tools and then putting them into practice. So, if you have a moment, take a moment to swing by and introduce yourself and just see what's happening over there. I think you will be impressed.
I haven't seen anything, but is there going to be like a kids camp this summer?
There is, and I'm going to look at Josh because I don't have it listed.
I think it's July 8th, I think is when it's going to begin, but don't quote me on that at this time. We're going to get advertising out within the next
Oh, okay.
week, but it's in July. What's that?
I think it's on our website.
Is it?
Okay, it's on our website.
Maybe from last year, but
I hadn't seen anything, so I
Okay, good,
just
thank
wasn't.
you.
And with that kids camp, again, a lot of support from our staff. Kim Enriquez has been working to organize volunteers, events, donations for the community. Things as simple as, a little bag of candy being prepped goes a long way for those students. I'm not saying we're pumping the students full of sugar and caffeine. I'm not saying
I
that.
don't know.
Send them home.
Send them home.
Come back.
But I'm seeing all that happen in the background, and I just want to again thank those our staff members that are putting that effort into making this all work. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kaiser?
thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is Student Affairs, Mr. McVeigh.
Good evening. Again, I would like to cover just a few highlights. And would like to begin with what we've talked about a couple times tonight, which is graduation. We received emails and comments from the community regarding how well the graduation went. The email stated that they felt it went off with a hitch from the audience's perspective. Nothing went wrong. Everything went great. And they said thank you for the conciseness, and it was very to the point, and it was very well done. And I'll tell you, I've worked with graduation for 5 years, and we've never had comments from the public. So it was a great graduation this year. So I think it was very successful. And the success, I want to say, comes from, I think, the committee, graduation committee. So we utilized a graduation committee that had over 5 members, I believe 7 or 8 members total. So there's a lot of different pieces that were working together to make that successful. And so I do want to just thank those members of the committee. They know who they are, but just I also want to give the responsibility, or those that were responsible for it, credit for what they accomplished. So it was very, very well done.
In your 5 years with the graduation, has there been a bigger audience than this last one?
So so last year was an in-person. It was the first time we were in person in 3 years. So the first 3 was virtual for me. And then I would say the audience, I can't give you definite numbers on it, I didn't count the door, but it looked like the audience was larger than it has been, was last year. So we had the gym last year, but I felt that the audience was larger this year than it was last year.
I think so.
It seems like it was larger than some I remembered.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned for next year because the auditorium was full. We almost had standing room only. So you guys, next year, hopefully we can, it'll be, I think it'll be a good opportunity for us. Let's see, we've got training for FAFSA. I wanted to explain a little bit about that. The federal government has redone what they're doing for FAFSA. It's a new, they say easier, better way of doing FAFSA. I think time will tell. But what's happened so far is it's kind of delayed things. So we are working through that with the government, and I think things are falling into place now, and so I think it's going to be moving forward. So it helps with kind of an example to give to you is that parents are able to fill out their part. So it used to be where one person, the student would fill out the FAFSA and their parent information. Now they email their parents for their tax information. And so they're able to fill it out, send that information, and they're able to send it back. So it's really making it electronic, but also incorporating other parties that we would give their information that way. So that's the government again has just redone that. So that's just working out the kinks and doing some more training, and we're doing great on our side, and everything's going very well. But I did want to communicate what that meant with the FAFSA. In athletics, we have a new rodeo coach we're very excited about. Started on May 13th, Mr. Bo Sigerman. So we're excited to have him, and moving forward with our rodeo. We've already got several recruits, I believe, recruited from the Northwest, and then others that are coming from other places that are, so that's going very well. We're looking at, right now, from what I understand, we're going to have between 7 and 12, maybe more students that'll be here for in the fall competing in rodeo. So that looks really good as well. We had 2 that qualified for the CNFR. However, due to injuries, only 1 is going to be able to compete this year. But still, we're excited about our participation in the CNFR. Moving on down to international students, the update there. I did want to let you know that Jessica has completed the DSO. She is part of CWIS there, so she has that DSO designation, so that has been completed. I know in the report, it says that she still needs to, but that has been completed since this has been submitted. Mr. Julio Galindo has done a wonderful job in communicating with state representatives and working with our grants as well, securing new opportunities in the future. And I really appreciate his work and what he's been doing Again, I want to highlight, I apologize, Evergreen State College, where we had received a grant from them for our Native American or Indigenous arts programming. Was $30,000 last year, and we've been offered potential for the $50,000 this year, SIAM grant. And so we are applying for that and anticipate having it granted. So again, Mr. Glenn doing a great job, great work there, as well as recruiting. I want to thank him for that too, as we continue to enroll students for the fall and the summer. We continue for the summer as well. Those are the highlights that I wanted to just kind of explain, but I am, of course, open to answer any questions. Oh, I apologize. One last thing. Cinco de Mayo, I did want to highlight that. You can see the numbers that are there, but I did want to say thank you again to the committee that worked with Cinco de Mayo, and that we did sell over 4,000 tickets, which means that we raised over $700 for next year, which is wonderful. So those tickets were 25 cents a piece, and the public could use those for games and things. And so again, over 4,000 of those were dispersed. So a great number of tickets, and I was dunked a great number of times. So I can testify to many of those tickets going to that wonderful game.
We need to schedule that on a warmer day.
That's right. And a pillow.
I'm still
on
trying
the,
to recover from
Yeah,
that.
Dr. Moss participated as well as Mr. Kaiser, Joel Kaiser, and he's in a pillow on the seat there. That was great.
That JAM, is that the Zanzibar training?
Yes, ma'am. It is the Zanzibar training that we will be attending next week, and it's a great opportunity. All the classes that are there. So our module managers are attending, and we're able to look through to see what areas or classes and intensives that we're able to take, and we will be attending those to help each of our module managers in each of those areas. It's a unique opportunity for us to be able to work directly with the trainers on site in person and for intensive.
How many students graduated from here?
I didn't write that down, but I will tell you that we had it was over 50 for the year. Actually, it may have been over 60 for the year. So I apologize, I don't have accurate numbers in front of me. But we had a good graduation of 38 that walked. Now that does include, nope, it doesn't include the high schoolers. So 38 plus 15 more. So
53.
that gives you the numbers, math. That gives you the numbers of those that walked. And we were very proud of the fact, too, Mr. Dean Garcia, with our adult education. We had 15 that graduated from adult education. And I do want to highlight, thank you for reminding me, one of the students, there's a new program that the state is doing for the testing of high school equivalency, that it's comprehensive. So instead of taking an individual test and going through questions and then scoring those questions, the student has an opportunity to do a comprehensive exam that's been put together. And we have the honor at Mesalands Community College of having the first graduate in the state that has done that, followed to that program. And the state will be doing a press release to highlight that student and their great work, and Mr. Dean Garcia's great work as well in accomplishing that.
On the food and agriculture grant, what is drought ring technology, and how does that?
Sure.
I mean, what does that do here?
So it's interesting. This gentleman has created this technology essentially for each tree or plant that would help to collect the water for each individual one of those. So it's an invention that he's created and believes to be very successful, but he's applying for a grant to build I believe a manufacturing facility for these rings that would be placed around. I think it's more of an urban kind of agriculture type of thing. And I know Mr. Julio Galindo is probably watching me right now going, probably wanting to explain this better. But he's looking at Melrose it being the manufacturing location. But again, it's an invention that he has, and he's looking for grant money to accomplish building those. And reaching out to Mesalands to partner with them on those, getting that done. Is that helpful?
Julio, about a phone call.
Give Julio a call.
We may ask him to write up a summary of that and we'll get it to you.
I will. We'll write up a good summary. I'll Julio write that up to you and give it to you in great detail.
I'm confused.
Okay. I'll ask Julio to do a
I'm
more
wondering what it's
detailed
gonna look like, you know?
Yeah.
Do we still have the old schools that joined Mesalands years ago? Are they still with us or they're gone already?
I think that's probably a better question for Dr. Moss, that he would
You
better.
mean like the high schools or?
High schools, yeah. Like
So-
Clayton, I forgot the name of the town there in Carey County, where they stayed at Texaco.
Yeah.
And
So-
Melrose.
We
Maybe not
still
Melrose.
have some of them. So remember last year, at the start of before the fall semester, we looked at pulling back from some of those because dual credit is in a sense a lose. We expend more money than we're gonna bring in for those. And so we've tried to concentrate on the schools right around us in our service area, but we're still working with Melrose. In fact, Mr. Kaiser mentioned last meeting that they're doing kind of a, you'll have to explain it.
It's hybrid course delivery where we're lecturing in the classroom, they're capturing us. It's the same as the board meeting, what's happening here. So those students in Melrose can see the instruction, the other students, they can respond. And on certain days, they actually come onto campus and perform lab activities. So we would call it hybrid connection. Some colleges have different names for it. There's ITV, which is in this territory. So we're trying to come up with a fancy name for our delivery as well.
Yeah, because I went and talked to them schools about dual enrollment and stuff. And then the board decided they wanted a new president, so I quit doing all that stuff that I used to do. I used to know everybody in school because I used to get in trouble with ACCT, and they were the ones that would help me get out of that problem, solve my problem that I had.
At one time, I think, my understanding is dual was funded better than it was, and so there was a push to get as many dual credit schools as you could. And now it's just funded at a fraction of what others are. So we're still working on, and that would also tie into like, we're looking to move to Canvas, which I think will help a little bit on our delivery on the virtual classes and our corrections facilities. They're excited about us moving to Canvas as the delivery system. And then some of the money that other money we're working on with HERF is to build some classrooms that'll make it easier to deliver some of those courses like the Melrose and some of those places. So we're still pushing for that, but we're trying to kind of focus. And we still have wind. We still offer those at this point to like, some schools up around Raton. Like we had one student that actually completed the certificate from there. And then there's some other places in the state that we still offer those programs.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. McBee? No? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always do that.
Thank you very much.
Next is Mr. Martinez, Executive Director of Operations and
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll start giving an update on the capital projects, most specifically the Building A project that's been ongoing for quite some time now. I'm happy to announce that we're near the completion of that project finally. We're getting closer to wrapping that up. And kind of supplemental to my report, one of the requests would be for requisition for CES for 2 invoices from WWRC. Everything's ran through CES through the vendor for the procurement process. And also the remaining funds available, about 53,000 or so, will be covered with that requisition. With that being said, the graphics have been installed. They put some new silver letters behind the counter space, knocking out all the punch list items that were pending. So again, we're very near to getting that completed and to be able to start moving staff onto that location. The plan is to do so prior to the fall semester. Also want to touch base on some of the things that have been happening on campus. Summit Fire and Security had come out here to give a quote on a fire alarm panel. Since then, they have been on site to install that. That's perfect timing, as we will be having the State Fire Marshal's office out here for the annual inspection next Wednesday. So that'll keep us busy. There's a lot that encompasses, but we've been straightforward with them and let them know that maybe some of the things weren't always the way they should have been previously, but we're doing everything we can within our power to make sure that we're hitting all of our annual fire extinguisher inspections, any testing of the fire alarm panels, standpipes, sprinkler systems, etc. That's something that's all been coordinated and will be done accordingly. We also have moved the Small Business Development Center from Building C, where it was housed for numerous years, over to the old Armory further down on 1202 South 11th Street. That's an effort. We've kind of started almost our own business incubator, if you would, over there in that building, with having the lease out now to Stantec, as well as the Hockadays have office space there as well. So it kind of seemed fitting and kind of have them a little bit more comfortable space there, and also an effort to move our facilities maintenance offices over to C, so everything's centralized with all of their utilities and their products, their chemicals and whatnot. It's all in one centralized location. And it also makes it a little bit easier for them to get in and out of there without having to taking up space in other buildings as well. I also had the opportunity to attend the Higher Education Technical Summit at the end of April and beginning of May. That is a newer, it was the first of many, it was the inaugural, I guess you would, first annual Higher Ed Technical Summit. Before, they had previously had something a little bit smaller size. This encompassed a little bit more, not just, I guess, capital outlay as it did previously, but it also talked about financial aid and some other topics as well. So that was crucial and very well attended, a great event, because it lets you know what to expect for the upcoming summer hearing, anything that's changed in capital outlay appropriation drawdown processes. It's your first eyes on things that will be changing, and a good little training session as well. I also wanted to thank, as everyone else did, the IT staff for their wonderful job of broadcasting and getting everything prepped for graduation last week, as well as the maintenance staff as well. They were out there helping move and relocate things, get everything situated. So thank you to those two entities for making sure that they got that accomplished. There's a lot of my time has been focused recently on trying to get a lot of these capital projects drawn down and spent and figured out before the end of the year. There's a lot of work that's going on in that, so not sure if it's been mentioned, but we will need to have a special meeting potentially next Wednesday. That way the board has to formally approve our big summer hearing capital project. Right now we're looking at a continuance of what we had proposed last year. It's mostly infrastructure to the exterior of these buildings to make sure that we have all the elements sealed out of these buildings to avoid any potential issues we have had in the past. A lot of our infrastructure is old and dated and needs to be replaced. A lot of the stucco work on the courtyard area where we had issues in the past. Some exterior stucco work on the west side of Building E, the wind energy building. The east side of the library, I know there's some roof issues. There's also some windows that need to be replaced. So there'll be more to come on that. Next week we'll discuss that. But I did want to let you all know that that's what's on the radar. I did receive some updates from the insurance actually just today in regard to our current pending claim that's due to a storm event that happened now about a year ago. They did give more information I've received in a long time about some of the other buildings. There will be some work performed on building A, the main building. There's also, building D, the art building that, has some concerns as well that we're gonna be addressing. And I should have the full report by tomorrow afternoon is what the insurance adjuster stated. He also mentioned that at that time tomorrow, I'll know more about the scheduling and what's gonna happen with the continued mold remediation updates on reports, for building E, the wind energy building. That's been most of the past week, so if there's any questions you have in regards to anything pending or ongoing, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
I don't think I've said anything to y'all about needing to have a special meeting next week, did I?
Surprise,
Sorry.
surprise.
Not
Okay,
this week,
I'll-
but next week.
Next week, because it has to be submitted by June 1st, so we were gonna try to have a special meeting sometime next week to give a little more time to get that put together. I thought it would be on the agenda. Did we talk about that?
No.
I know Mark and I talked about
We
it.
did talk about it, and I asked if it needed to be on the agenda, and you said, I'll just say it in my report.
Oh, that's
We
right.
can decide what day.
That's right.
But you did.
So going back to my report, we need to have a special meeting next week to approve that.
And it shouldn't take too much time, it should be short and straightforward to the point, kind of presenting the ideas and the paperwork documentation of what would be part of that project. As a little bit of background, there is a match associated with that to all two-year institutions. However, there's an opportunity to get that match waived, so that would be my preference and suggestion. We asked for that last year. Unfortunately, we were not eligible due to the audits being behind. We're on track now where we do feel we would have the opportunity to be eligible for those capital outlay funds next fiscal year.
Can we move forward now instead of stay still?
As
Are
far
we,
as,
are we finished with the government, with New Mexico?
so we still have to follow the process and go through, making sure we're in compliance with those orders as far as the audits, and then we have to go through the formal processes, getting our project approved by the board before we submit. And then in August is actually when we'd submit, Dr. Moss and I would go down to Hobbs. They split it up by different regions, and our region will be hosted in Hobbs this year, where we're able to actually present that project that's been pre-approved by the board. So we still have to go through all the red tape and all the
Still
all the
have to go through all
processes.
that?
We still have to go through it, but hopefully we'll be successful this time around and get caught up to everything where we would get some funds for capital outlay.
August.
So I would ask, when would be a good date next week? Would Thursday be a possibility, or
On Thursday.
you don't have to be? I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I'm going to do Denny's Thursday,
Okay,
so it's either
that's
Tuesday
kind
or
of,
Wednesday.
and you, when we'll be ready for that?
The latest available, potentially Wednesday if we can, would be ideal, and then I'd have to coordinate it to stream it remotely because IT will be attending
Jam.
as well.
Next week it'd be all right for me. This week's tied up for me.
29th?
29th? Can we do it in the afternoon?
That's what I was gonna say, 'cause I have something
Yep.
in the at
Uh,
5:30, so.
I mean, yeah, we could have it at like 2 or 3 or,
My wife has surgery the 28th, but she'll be out, they'll let her out the 29th that morning.
so how late could we go? And it shouldn't be a long, because that'll be the only topic, I think, on the agenda.
I wouldn't expect more than 15-20 minutes to explain everything.
Because we'll try to get it
answer
to you to
questions.
look at before then. What, 2, 3 o'clock?
Yeah,
What,
that,
3 o'clock.
I don't want to rush you.
I just have to be
Let's
done
get
by
out of bed.
5:30.
Okay. And we,
Wednesday, 3
I don't
o'clock.
think, well, we can't take any action on that, so we just send out
Yeah, I just send out the notice in the agenda.
a, okay.
So on this, on the insurance, there's, all of these are buildings that have damage a year ago. Do they have any idea when we can get these fixed before we have another storm? Or something?
So, I don't have a definite answer just because I'm gonna get the full report tomorrow. So the plan was the highest priority due to the mold and remediation that's already taken place in Building E, was Building E for that reason. So the roof is scheduled to be complete, well, not complete, but start construction in July, August. That's the best they've released to us at this point. The other attachments that I received in the email today were quotes from another contractor to confirm work on Building A and D. That's the main building as well as the art building. Let's see if I can pull it up. And that's the first time I've seen anything. There's been talk a little bit behind the scenes that yes, there's gonna be some other things covered, some stucco work, but nothing firm in writing. So this is the first time that they provided it. And I expect to get more tomorrow to cover everything. And a lot of this work was done by a third-party vendor, and they were on campus shortly after the storm, but I guess they've just taken a while to compile all this information, release it to the insurance, and then the insurance is negotiating back and forth what's gonna get covered or not, and then ultimately, now they're sending that scope of work out to the different vendors to see if they'd be willing to get this done and negotiate a price. So it's been really drawn out.
And I think the contractor that's doing Building E, the wind building, is currently working on the roofs at the school district.
I'm not certain because I went by the elementary the other day and it was a different company. The company we're looking at is J3 Systems, which is very reputable. It's disappointing having to wait, but I'm feel a little bit better knowing that we're getting somebody of quality, that we don't have to have concerns with, somebody that's good to work with, a good reputation.
Over at the old Granger, where the Granger used to be, that J3, I thought that those trailers had J3 on.
And they could be, I'm not sure if stuff was subbed out, but I was looking specifically the elementary, there was a different company on that had a different logo on there.
This was over at the junior high, but
So
like Mr. Brock said, this we could have even more and more damage the longer it goes on.
And honestly, we have. I mean, that's why we had further potential mold in Building E, and they had to come back and remediate that already, and they've evaluated that multiple times because it continued to leak since last May when the initial incident occurred. And it's unfortunate, but they've come through at least on that, and they've done some preventative maintenance. I mentioned, I think, last meeting, where they actually did some kind of patchwork where now it stopped leaking over that bay area where it used to before, where the cells at. So it has helped, but to the exterior, I don't know to what extent we've received further damage. And the last building that I forgot to mention that was in this email today is the armory as well. There was some damage to that. And again, this is just preliminary numbers, some stuff we're looking at. There was hail damage. They're looking at about 61,900. I don't know if that's just a quote or if that's what we received, because this is from a third party, from a contractor, and that was for the armory. And I can pull up these others as well. For Building A, they're looking at an estimated repair amount of about $142,890. And for Building D, the art building, they're looking at about 74,000, and it shows that there was some damage to, it looks maybe like some vents, some work around the skylights. I know the skylights were already replaced throughout campus. That was a concern, and it also shows that there was some kind of damage, it looks like, to the HVAC. So I need to follow up on that and see exactly what they were referencing on the HVAC unit, but most of it was just kind of vents and damage around the skylights is what it looks like.
Speaking of the armory, at some point, I think we need to start planning on what are we gonna use that space for? Right now it houses, like Mr. Martinez says, Stantec, Hockadays, the Small Business Development Center, and then Strong Seniors uses one of the rooms, but I know there's been different plans over the years for the gym area. And it's not something we can take on right now, but at some point we need to think about what are we gonna use that space for down the road.
The whole building?
Well, or at least a big part of it, I think it's a great space for the offices we're currently leasing and using. But, you know, that still leaves a lot of the building, that at this point, we don't have any set plans for. I know in the past, it's been talked about for a student union. 2 or 3 years ago, there was a discussion about using it as an early childhood center, and we're working toward a grant on that. And that's something Mr. Glendo mentioned in his report to Ms. McVeigh. So that's something, you know, not today, but somewhere down the road soon, we need to kind of be thinking, what do we want to, what's going to happen with that building?
I got a question to ask you. I've been hearing a commercial on the radio about the summer reading program. There was something when I was city commissioner I worked for. The city denied it. And also the outdoor classroom, they also denied that to me. And when I decided to do what I wanted to do, they decided to kick me out.
So I'm
What?
glad you brought that up. So it's something that I meant to mention earlier between our one-on-one meeting with Dr. Moss, that the Cabinet Secretary for Higher Ed, Ms. Rodriguez, had sent out an email talking about that summer reading program. And I've done a little bit of research on it. I thought maybe the college would be a good host site where we could actually host those students, since we have some available classroom space now during the summer, and have the infrastructure, the classroom to host those students to hold that program. The one concern I've seen on my research is the state needs enough interest from the individuals within the surrounding area or with Tucumcari to actually relay that to actually employ people to host that program here. And it sounds like right now, my latest research, just the closest areas that are hosting that summer reading program are Melrose and Clovis. So that's the closest, because I guess maybe they're not expressing interest to host something in Tucumcari. But
No, they don't.
maybe if we could start advertising as well as the college, and maybe we have already, I'm not sure, that we could be the host site for that. And then they employ their own teachers through the state to come teach those individuals that reading program. And it's throughout the summer, but no, that's definitely on my radar. That's something I've been thinking about.
I've been thinking about it real hard, and then I heard the commercial on the radio. Because the media never said nothing when I was fighting for it. They just stayed quiet. We had two of them back in the day. One in the radio station where they used to give the news, and then another one for the paper. They never said nothing. They just get quiet.
Yeah, I think that's important to grow the education system and start. I think it's a program for maybe kindergarten up through 8th grade, if I remember correctly. And I don't know if they needed a place to host it, but I figured we have some available space, and why not start here and to show that we have that available, and hopefully we can spark enough interest to host something in Tucumcari instead of them having to maybe travel out of town to attend something like that.
Because I don't think I hate to say it, but Tucumcari don't have an interest in education, period. I know. I've been through all that trouble. Me and Dora McTeague, we both fight for that, and they threw us off.
That's the first time I'd heard about physical sites. I think my daughter had applied to teach, and she was under the impression it was virtual, but
I thought it was
Is it
virtual.
virtual?
yeah. So I don't know, it may be a combination.
It may be a combination, because like I said, I know there's some physical sites in Clovis and in Melrose.
Definitely a need.
Any other questions for Mr. Martinez? Not, we'll move on to purchase requisition, CES for WWRC Building A project.
Yes, sir. So something I wanted to do a little bit different moving forward. Whenever we have these capital outlay projects, or any project for that matter, example would be the requisition for Genzabar. When we have an approved contract at the beginning of the year, which typically everything would be renewed at the beginning of the fiscal year in July. Instead of having smaller requisitions throughout the year, piecemeal, even like we do with the training for Genzabar, that comes up month after month after month after month. And you go through the process, and you could get in a bind where Now you're being more reactive to the invoice and generating that requisition instead of being proactive and generating that requisition purchase order prior to the actual invoice being submitted. When you're reactive to it, that actually becomes an audit item. You're supposed to have all that in place prior to your purchase. So with that being stated, we are ahead of these. We haven't paid the invoices yet. Obviously, we need to get the purchase order. So the first step is the requisition. And in doing that, I'm asking for the requisition to be approved in the full dollar amount, $172,353.12. That's the remaining balance for this project to be completed. And I've done that for a few reasons. One, to be proactive. Two, because it streamlines and saves some time. Once these two invoices are paid, I'll have about $53,000 remaining to go towards this project that will revert at the end of fiscal year, June 30th of this year if we do not spend it. So the plan is to work as quickly as possible with the contractor to try to do some work to the restrooms. We've been talking about that for some time now. This full dollar amount, the full contract with CES for WWRC was already had prior approval from the board, and it also had prior approval from the Higher Education Department. There was a notice of obligation that was approved, I'd say at least a year or two ago, that obligated that entire dollar amount for the full contract. So again, this kind of streamlines it. It pays the two invoices that I mentioned earlier for work that's been completed. That was the vinyl graphics, that was some painting, counter work, and the bulk of that was also the furniture that's already been delivered and installed in that area. So that's the reasoning behind this requisition approval process. And of course, since it's over the $20,000 threshold that's set by our administrative handbook, that's a reason for bringing it to the board tonight. So I'd ask for any questions, if not, for your approval on the requisition.
So we're gonna approve a requisition for $172,000, which is the total amount of the contract we have with WWRC.
Correct.
And we'll pay those two invoices, but we'll still have $63,000 in that's not spent, but we're approving the requisition to spend it.
Correct. So with that on my spreadsheet, which is on mine, it's page 70 of 76. It shows the spreadsheet that I used to track the appropriation. I show the two invoices, which is Pay App 10 and Pay App 11, towards the bottom half of that sheet. $59,000 a piece for each of those pay applications. And then with my running total, I actually show that we have $53,771.49 remaining through that appropriation. And that's also covered by this requisition for a purchase order, because that's the amount that's been approved by contract to date, both by the state and by the previous board, probably not all the same board members as when it was previously approved. And in doing that, since this has already been procured through CES, through that contract, we've met that procurement requirement, if you would, and it allow us to move forward with that same vendor to do some work for the restrooms as quickly as possible. If not, then we'd have to come back each additional time to the board to get that reapproved every time we're a new purchase order, which would make it nearly impossible to spend down those remaining $53,000.
So $53,771 is what we'll have left of that grant. What was the total of the grant that
So the total for that appropriation was $400,000.
$400,000?
And then they take out the 1% for the art public places.
Right.
And then realistically, we had 396 for this project. And then you can see each draw on my spreadsheets, everything that accompanies that, and what it was for CES, and PSC was Park Hill Smith Cooper at the time before they came Park Hill. That was for engineering and coordinating some things on the engineering side. And then everything else has been a drawdown directly for construction for the Building A project. And it shows each draw that was requested, and then On the right-hand side, it shows the date request and the date received. So I guess another positive out of this was I had requested that HED pay the vendor directly like we had when we were in our financial issues. But they stated since we're doing quite better than we were last year, that they denied that request since we had the cash flow. They're keeping up to date with our EFOPs, with our reporting monthly. And they felt, or actually weekly, they felt that we were able to go ahead and move forward and pay from our own cash flow and not need HED's assistance to pay the vendor directly. So to me, that speaks very highly of where we've come in 1 year and really advanced and able to support our own projects and pay for our own projects outright.
So we'll get reimbursed the $118,000 for the.
Yes, 100%. So as soon as this meeting's over, if y'all approve this, we will go through the process. I'll get it approved on the computer side through the track, and we'll generate a PO. And as soon as that's done, I'll ask the accounts payable office tomorrow to cut a check. We'll get it paid to CES. And as soon as that takes place, I already have the paperwork drawn up to HED to actually get reimbursed for that. They only accept and run their deadline for drawdowns on the 1st and the 15th. So I'll have to have this I'll have it in before June 1st, and then they'll run it with that batch, and then it'll be at their discretion as soon as they can get it out. Hopefully sometime in June is when we receive the $118,000. And if I could draw down more of that, then we'll receive the remaining balance of whatever that is before the end of the fiscal year, hopefully.
And the $53,000 left will probably go to the restrooms.
100%. That's what's going to go toward. Yeah. There's only
It'll go to where?
to the
The
restrooms
restrooms
in building A.
and Building A.
We're pretty strict on the scope of what we could utilize it for, and that had already had pre-authorization from HED. And since it's all part of that notice of obligation, all I have to do is get the quote from WWRC on how much that would be, submit it up as kind of a heads up to HED, make sure it's fine, and then move as quickly as possible to get that drawn down so we don't leave no money on the table.
So anyway, we approved this purchase order of $172,000. That's approval of all of the grant money that we've got. It's saying that they can spend it, and for that building. Any other questions on the requisition? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the requisition for CES with WWRC.
I'll make that motion that we approve the requisition.
Second it.
A motion and a second, roll call please.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
and Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
And the motion carried.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, thanks for all you do,
I'm
appreciate
gonna
it.
approve it right now.
All right, get that money back. The shared governing senates are out, so there will not be a report. Next is, I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion that we go into executive session.
The motion and a second, roll call please.
I didn't get the
Mr.
second.
Box.
Oh, okay. Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Susan,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
All right. A motion to reconvene an executive session.
I shall move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, twice, roll call.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
All right, there was no action coming from executive session. There's no correspondence. Memorial Day is May the 27th. College will be closed, and our calendars and reports in there. Announcement, Tuesday, June 18th will be our regular meeting here at 5:30. And then I have a couple more trainings if y'all wanna, y'all have time to do that. Like I did last meeting.
A special meeting on the 29th will be in this room.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.